Right, so hello and welcome back to Books and Things. Today I'm going to be doing the 25 bookish facts about me tag. I have not been tagged in this because this is one of these tags that so many people have been doing that people have stopped tagging people in, and they keep on saying, I think everyone's been tagged in this by now, and I'm like, no, I haven't been. However, I'm going to do it anyway. I'm probably not tagging anyone because I also feel that everyone has been tagged in this by now and it's probably not true. Anyway, books. The premise of this tag is very simple. You basically just give 25 bookish book-related facts about yourself. I always carry 2 books in my bag because I suffer from a constant fear that if I finish one book I might not have another book to read. This fear extends even if I am like 100 pages into an 1,000-page book. I still have to have a backup book in my bag just in case. I'm incredibly excited by the fact that my coat pockets are big enough for me to fit a book in each pocket. I have always lived in stories and kept company with fictional characters. When I was about 3 years old, there is a video of my brother asking me why I am so obsessed with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and why I like the dwarfs so much, and my answer is because they're my friends. Even before I was actually physically writing stories, I always used to write stories in my head, and I would always have a novel that I was writing in my head and that I was thinking about. I used to sometimes speak them aloud to myself when I was alone because I was cool, and otherwise I would just keep the story going on in my head and I would remember where I was up to, and the next time I had time to think, I would start thinking through that story again and doing all the dialogue, all the writing, just writing it just only in my head. I first completed a novel when I was 12 years old. I finished a novel entitled The Complete and Utter Guide to Being Crazy. Yeah. I always put my bookmarks in the wrong way up. I always finish books. I just can't bear to give up on them. Even if I'm really not enjoying them, I just feel like the last 10 pages might be the most incredible thing and might make the whole book brilliant, so I like to persevere until the end. I have very, very rarely given up on a book. There are a few books that I've started, got about 10 pages into, decided I wasn't feeling it at that time and put to the side, but I don't think I've ever got more than sort of 20 pages into a book and then given up on it. Until I was about 13 and started reading Victorian literature, I used to skim read everything. Like, I used to read the dialogue and the exciting bits and nothing in between, and I used to miss like characters' deaths and stuff because I wasn't concentrating. And then I discovered Jane Eyre and everything changed. I much prefer paperbacks to hardbacks, unless they're like tiny hardbacks like these ones, which can kind of fit in your pocket and very much in your bag. I spent my teenage years devouring massively long books, but now that I'm a bit older I seem to be a little bit afraid of them and keep reading much shorter ones. I used to work at the Jane Austen Centre in Bath, which basically means I used to spend my weekends dressing up as Kitty Bennet and telling people how brilliant Jane Austen was. I fell in love with Victorian literature through watching period dramas, so for many of my favourite novels of all time I actually saw a TV or film adaptation of that book before I read the book. In contemporary fiction I much prefer the first person to the third person, and I can often find third person narration a bit boring, but when it comes to Victorian literature I probably prefer the third person to the first person. I also absolutely love the present tense in fiction. I think it is seriously underrated. I do almost all my reading on trains. I'm subscribed to over 130 booktube channels on YouTube, which basically means I permanently have at least 50 and often 100 videos in my watch later playlist. Basically I got into booktube while I was doing my masters and had a lot more time in my life than I currently have. Whoops. I have a massive picture of Charles Dickens on my wall. I once met Charles Dickens's great-grandson. I was very, very excited. I made Nick read a Dickens book before we started going out. There is a logical explanation behind this story which involves a university seminar group, but I still kind of like the fact that that's actually true. Books are one of the only ways I actually relax. I'm really bad at watching film or TV because I get really fidgety and I find it very hard to sit still, whereas when I'm reading books I don't seem to have that problem. I think it's partly to do with like turning the pages makes me less fidgety. Anyway. So you all know what my favourite novel is, but my favourite short story collection is Emerald City by Jennifer Egan. My favourite poem is either At Castle Botterell by Thomas Hardy or Long Distance 2 by Tony Harrison. My favourite play is either Every Good Boy Deserves Favour by Tom Stoppard or Spring Storm by Tennessee Williams. In fact, the name of my YouTube channel actually comes from the play Spring Storm. There are 2 characters in this play called Arthur and Heavenly. Arthur has been away from the town for a long time and he's studied and he really likes reading, and Heavenly doesn't really understand this, and reading is this kind of mythic, distant thing to her that she has no interest in whatsoever. So she keeps on saying that Arthur is interested in books and things as this kind of mythical entity, and I kind of always like the phrase in the play and the way Heavenly says it, as though books and things always comes together is in that there must be books and also things that are related to books, and she doesn't really know what the things are, but she knows they must be there, and for some reason that phrase always appealed to me. Sometimes I think I like talking about books almost as much as I like reading them. Almost. There we have it. There have been 25 bookish facts about me. I hope you enjoyed this video. Anyway, I'll be back soon. In the meantime, happy reading.